I think most of us have had one of those moments when we have been very excited about an accomplishment that we have made. When we have that feeling of excitement or happiness because of something we did, we call that feeling pride. We're very proud of what we have done and what we've accomplished. And, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think oftentimes we want our kids to be proud of what they've done. We want ourselves to be proud of what we've done. We're proud of our family members as well, or proud of something that happens at our church or something that happens at our work. We can be very proud, and that's a good thing. But sometimes an excessive amount of pride can get in the way. If someone has an excessive amount of pride, sometimes that can turn into arrogance. And as good as pride can be, or as good as it can be for us to feel proud about the things we did, if it moves to the place of arrogance, then we start getting into trouble. So there's this story in 2 Kings chapter 5 that talks about a man who is very accomplished. He is a great accomplished warrior. And as an accomplished warrior, his name is Naaman. And as an accomplished warrior, he's elevated to lots of positions of leadership. And he's very much honored by his king. The problem is he has leprosy. He is a person that's dealing with the skin disease that's really affecting his ability to continue and be the commander that he is. And as he's trying to get healed of this, he basically tries everything. And he has a slave girl who's actually an Israelite slave girl that again, this warring army has captured at some point in their battles. And this slave girl says, "It's too bad you don't have access to Elisha, this man of God of Israel, because if you had access to Elisha, he could cure you of your disease." Now, as soon as Naaman hears this, he's a little bit reluctant at first because, after all, Israel is an enemy. But the king, Naaman's king, says, "You know what? If it can heal Naaman, I'm going to go ahead and send you a letter to the king of Israel and ask him to bring you to Elisha so that you could be healed." Now, as soon as that letter is sent, king of Israel gets all panicky because he's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do about this?" And he rips his clothes. That's kind of the act that they do when they're worried about something. So he tears his clothes, and Elisha hears about this and he goes, "What is wrong? What's going on? Why did you do this?" And he says, they want me to do the impossible. They expect me to heal Naaman, this commander of the army. And Elisha says, "Well, send him to me." And so that's essentially what happens. And so let me pick up the story at chapter 5, 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 9. It says this: "So Naaman came," so Naaman's given the permission of this. "So Naaman came with his horses and chariots, and he halted at the entrance of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to him and said, 'Go wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh will be restored.'" Wow, isn't that great? I mean, here's Naaman. He comes up there and he comes with all his power and his authority, and he goes right to the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha says, "Yeah, just go wash in the river." What a simple fix, right? Well, how does this arrogant commander take that? It says this in verse 11: "But Naaman became angry, and he went away saying, 'I thought that for me you would surely come out and stand and call upon the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the spot and cure this leprosy.'" Did you hear that? I thought for me you would put on this great show. Do you know who I am? I mean, that's really what Naaman is saying. Do you know who I am? Do you know the kind of power I have? And you just tell me to go wash in the river? He goes on to say, the rivers in my own country, they're stronger and better than your measly Jordan River. Why would I do that? And his arrogance has just got a hold of him, because he wants He wants Elisha to do something fancy and cool in order to heal the likes of him. Well, after that happens, one of Naaman's servants approaches him and he says, Father, if the prophet had commanded you to do something difficult, would you not have done it? How much more when he says you can go wash and be clean? So Naaman hears that and he relents and he goes down and he immerses himself in the Jordan 7 times according to the word of the man of God, according to Elisha. And his flesh is restored and the flesh becomes like a young boy's. It's as clean as that. I love that story for so many reasons, but the main reason I love that story is it really puts a focus on that idea of pride and how pride can get in the way if we allow it to become arrogance. You know what? I think pride can get in the way of a lot of things in our life. It can get in the way of relationships that we have with family members, or with friends, or with people at work, but can also get in the way of our relationship with God. Because sometimes God's presence is so common that we sometimes miss it. And you know, when we read stories of these miraculous healings or something miraculous that happens, sometimes we might allow ourselves to think, you know, that's what God needs to do in my life. And if we do that, sometimes we miss the most simple things that God is doing in our life. So pride, if you ever feel that place where you feel your pride beginning to turn to arrogance, maybe look at 2 Kings chapter 5 and read that story of Naaman and remind yourself, God is greater and God can do amazing things. And we can't allow our own arrogance and our pride to keep God from doing the amazing things that he wants to do in our lives.